What's going on YouTube? Ben here, Player.net, and today we're taking a look at the ASRock Fatal1ty X99X Killer Series motherboard. Now this of course features the X99 chipset as the name would suggest, and it's built for Intel's new Haswell-E processors and of course the DDR4 memory that we're all looking forward to. Well, not looking forward to, it's out now, isn't it? We're all enjoying, loving looking at the reviews, playing with it. As you can see, this one here takes up to 128 gigabyte of memory, so that's real great. You power that with a 5960 or something. Whoo, quad SLI or something, them new 970s, 980s, you got yourself in for a treat. But let's get to it. As you can see, the front of the box goes with the whole Fatal1ty thing that they've had coming on. It looks very similar to that of the Z97 boards we reviewed a few months ago. Of course, down at the bottom, it lets us know it has the Fatal1ty gaming gear. Of course, Intel chipset, SLI, Windows 8.1, Purity Sound, App Shop, Ultra M2, which I can't wait to get my hands on one of those bad boys here in the near future, and all that type of fun stuff. Moving on to the back of the box, and I know, ooh, there we go, it's probably a bit harder to see, but this is where they go into a bit more in-depth description of what we can expect from this motherboard. It goes on to cover things like the gaming armor, which is the components to actually build up this motherboard, and how ASRock have tried to help keep us best protected and all that type of shit with the high density power connectors, multiple filter caps, and just all that type of stuff. We can also see that it's made from super alloy components, of course with the heat sinks and whatnot. It's got the Ultra Dual MOSFET as it says. And yeah, just a bit of information, more information on the Ultra M2 slot, RAM. So you can take ECC and RDIMM RAM, so that's always nice and handy. But yeah, just a bit of information on the back here. So let's go ahead, put this bad boy down and take a look at what comes in the box real quick. We of course have a bit of information on the ASRock Cloud here. We have a NVIDIA 3-way SLI adapter, some SATA 3 cables. We of course have our quick install and software setup guides, pardon me, and of course our driver CD, which if you have access to the internet, as always, please just go to the ASRock site, update your BIOS, update the drivers from there. We have a normal 2-way SLI bridge here. Yeah, we have one of these SATA power cables here, and we of course have our backplate IO shield, whatever you prefer to call it. Now before we get into it too much, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this M2 screw that comes with it. No, I'm going to go ahead and get the motherboard out of the box and give you guys a bit closer look at it, so stay tuned. Alright, so here it is. And as always, one of the things I always like to point out about the ASRock motherboards is the fact that they come encased in foam. It's not just that little pink piece of foam under it to protect the back from getting scratched up. They literally zip tie the motherboard to this piece of foam here. And while I've gone ahead and cut the zip ties off to save time for the video, it does come zip tied, so don't worry about it. It definitely adds a lot of protection to it. And it just makes you feel safe, a bit safer when you open it up. But let's set that out of the way and have a bit closer look. Now as you can see, we of course have our LGA 2011-3 socket, which some of you may or may not notice is quite a bit bigger than the 1150 sockets from the Z97 chipset, 4770Ks and that type of stuff. So that should be one indication that we're going to get a bit more power out of this. Another indication is the fact that we have 8 DDR4 RAM slots that can currently support up to 128 gigabyte of DDR4 RAM at 3000 plus megahertz with OC. Now, when these boards came out, DDR4 RAM was obviously new, so the limits hadn't been pushed too far. So no telling what you'll be able to get out of these in the near future. So as always, Just keep an eye on it. Like I said, that's one of the important reasons to go ahead and make sure you update your BIOS when a stable version comes out. There's of course 3 PCI Express 3.0 X6 that'll run at X16 depending on your processor. Now things like the 5960K and whatnot have or X, whichever one it is, pardon me, will have the 40 PCIe lanes. So this will be a good way to get a nice tri-fire, or if you got, well, try SLI or something. But if you've got the 5820K like I do, you've only got 28 PCIe lanes on the processor itself. So depending on if you're using the M2 slots in the Ultra M2, you might lose a bit of performance trying to run SLI or whatnot, but for the most part it should be fine. And as I'm currently using a single graphics card setup, it's more than fine for me. So yeah, we have our 10 SATA 3 6.0 gigabyte per second port slots, whatever you like to call them. We have our debug LED down here. We have our reset and power buttons, which will come in handy for overclockers. That means you don't have to plug your case into it, a power button into it. If you don't want to, you can go ahead, just hook your power supply up to it and use these buttons to power the board on and reset it. We of course have some fan headers, USB headers. There's a BIOS switch here, so we can go ahead and set up dual BIOS. So if you know you've got a steady overclock, you can go ahead and set it to BIOS 1 or whatnot, your settings, and then if you want to play around, you can go ahead and flip the BIOS, switch to the other one, so if anything happens, boom, you can always go back to the original and you're good to go. Yeah, just worth noting, obviously, as this is the Fatality board, we of course have the nice red heat sinks, very similar to that of the Z97 chipset. As we can see, the MOSFET heat sinks actually have a piece of metal connecting them two together to just further help dissipate the heat on them, which is always nice. For the audio, we have the Purity Sound 2, which is 7.1 channel HD and supports DTS Connect and that type of stuff. We have the Killer E2200 and Intel Gigabit Ethernet LAN ports on here. Just again to make sure, offering users the best in everything, really, it seems like. On to the back I/O panel. We'll take a quick look at that. There we go. As mentioned, we of course have our two Ethernet ports, 7.1 channel audio. There's 6 USB 3.0. And then there's of course our mouse and keyboard ports up here. We have the old PS2 and 2 USBs, one of which is a USB Fatality mouse port, which offers a few extra features over that of normal mouse ports, which is always nice. And yeah, we of course have our clear CMOS button here. In case anything happens, we need to reset the CMOS, we can just go ahead and hit that instead of having to open our case up and look for the jumper and move it over to the 2 pins and whatnot. But yeah, that was just a quick unboxing. I just wanted to give you guys a closer look at the ASRock Fatal1ty X99X killer motherboard. I look forward to testing this out. Big thanks to ASRock for sending it in, and please check back on player.net in the near future for the full review to come. Thank you.